The two most popular places to live around Charleston are Summerville and Mount Pleasant. Now this is due to their highly rated and highly desirable school districts. However, there's a lot of similarities and differences that you need to know so that you can make an informed decision on where you want to move, which is what we're going to discuss today. What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I am Bill Olson, your favorite YouTubing Charleston realtor, and I make videos to help people make better decisions when moving to, from, or around the greater Charleston area. So if you're looking to make a move in the next 3 days to 3 years, go ahead and give me a call, shoot me an email, let's chat and see how I can help. All right, so let's get right into this. And we're gonna discuss that one thing, why people decide between Summerville and Mount Pleasant. Why do they narrow it down to that? Well, that is because most likely the schools. Now, they are the two highest rated school districts in the area, where most of Summerville falls into Dorchester County, which is Dorchester District 2 schools. Now, this is the #1 ranked school district in the greater Charleston area according to niche.com. And in Mount Pleasant, they have the #1 rated traditional public high school of Wando High School there. So both are highly desirable. Now it should be noted that Mount Pleasant did add a second high school, which is Lucy Beckham High School, and parts of Summerville do fall into Berkeley County and the Cane Bay schools. But for this video, we're actually going to be talking about all of Summerville and all of Mount Pleasant. Now, the first and biggest difference that we're going to talk about is the cost of living, specifically housing. Now, we all know that in real estate, the three things that dictate the price of any real estate is location, location, and location. Now, here in Charleston, the good rule of thumb to know is the closer you are to downtown Charleston and the beaches, the more expensive housing is going to be. So when we looked at that map, we have Mount Pleasant very close to the beaches and very close to downtown. So as you've probably guessed, if you didn't know already, Mount Pleasant is going to be more expensive than Summerville. But exactly how much more? This, if you don't know, could surprise you. So year to date, right now, the median single family home price in Summerville is just below $390,000. And when we look at the median single family home in Mount Pleasant, we are sitting at $905,000. It is over 2 times as expensive to buy a home in Mount Pleasant than it is in Summerville. It's actually because of this that we're seeing a lot of people move to the Summerville area, and it's not all just because they can't afford Mount Pleasant. Even the ones that can afford to live in Mount Pleasant, I've seen move to Summerville because their dollar stretches a lot further and they can get a bigger, nicer home for the money up there than what they would get in Mount Pleasant. The one thing that does also come with these higher property values are higher property taxes. So you have that in addition to the higher mortgage payments there, but also your insurance. So being closer to the coast, you are going to have a bigger opportunity to be in a flood zone that is going to require flood insurance in Mount Pleasant, whereas in Summerville, you have a higher probability of being in Zone X, which is a lowest risk zone for floods, so you may not be required to carry that flood insurance. So that's going to be another cost savings that you're going to have living in Summerville. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think on the cost of living here, Summerville does get the point for this one. For one thing that is similar when it comes to the real estate in both areas is going to be the types of neighborhoods that you're going to find, because both are going to have your more established neighborhoods, your new and newer neighborhoods, and your historic districts. Now, on the new and newer side, Summerville is going to have more options because they are expanding in more directions, where you've got Nexton and Cane Bay, Carnes Crossroads, Summers Corner, the Ponds, and down in Mount Pleasant, you've got some construction going on still in Dunes West, and then Carolina Park further out, and then they are expanding a little bit further, like into Awanda and that area now. And then for both on the higher end of the budgets, of course, you're going to have your historic districts, where in Summerville, that's going to be around Azalea Park and Hutchinson Square, which is historic downtown Summerville, is where you're going to find these homes. And in Mount Pleasant, that's going to be in Old Village, which is right near Shem Creek, But like I said, expect to drop a pretty penny compared to other areas if this is where you want to live. Next, we're going to talk about the amenities and what there is to do. Now, both have a plethora of indoor, outdoor, and everything activities that you could want. And again, location does play into this. Now, in Mount Pleasant, being more coastal, you are going to have more access to more water. So if getting to the beach super quick to surf or kayak or just walk on the beach is super important, or you want to be in a neighborhood that is closer to boat docks or boat ramps, then Mount Pleasant is going to take the win in this category. But Summerville really isn't far from all of that either. It's just a little bit longer drive. You have to plan a little bit more to get to them. Those cities actually offer farmers markets. Summerville runs on Saturdays from April through November from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And Mount Pleasant is on Tuesday evenings from 3:30 to 7, and that runs from April through September. And then we get to the shopping and dining aspect, and spoiler alert, I'm giving this one a tie to both, with maybe a slight edge to Mount Pleasant, and here's why. Both Summerville and Mount Pleasant offer a wide range of dining and shopping options. In fact, a lot of the restaurants from Mount Pleasant and downtown are opening second locations in Summerville. A lot of these in the Nexton Square, where we're seeing Taco Boy, Hall's Chop House, Page's Okra Grill, Poogan's Porch, all opening second locations up there, so that if you do live up there, you don't have to drive all the way into downtown or Mount Pleasant to experience this wonderful food. But where Mount Pleasant gets the slight edge is because of that proximity to downtown and even down to Sullivan's Island, where we're seeing a lot of great restaurants open that don't have those second locations or aren't going to be opening those second locations further north right now. And the other side of the amenities is the shopping aspect. And again, I think this is a tie. Both are going to offer your big box stores with Target, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, and things like that. And they're also going to have your local boutique, family-owned shops and stores. So when it comes to that, I really don't think that there is much of a difference. When it comes to traffic and commuting, it all depends on where you work and what you do. Recently, with everyone being able to work remotely for the most part, it seems like that you don't really have to worry about traffic and commuting, but there still is a lot of rush hour traffic, and it just depends on where you're going. Now, let's say you're working downtown, then yes, for the most part, it's gonna be a lot quicker to get downtown from Mount Pleasant than it is from Summerville, but you're still going to experience elevated commute times during these rush hour periods into downtown in the morning and out of downtown in the evenings. Now, Summerville is going to be slightly longer because you're going to have to take the highway to get there. However, we are seeing a lot of businesses expand to Summerville, and even north of Summerville, where we have Volvo, Redwood Materials, and even the big Walmart distribution plant is now up there. So if you're working at one of those places, then Summerville is going to be your much shorter commute to get there. And now something you've probably all been waiting for, and that is the weather and storms and flooding. How does that differ? Well, first we'll talk about flooding real quick. My disclaimer on flooding is it's not as widespread as everyone thinks it is. Every time it rains and there's a high tide or a storm comes in, all of our houses aren't flooded with water, even though there's the different flood zones like we talked about. But it is something to be aware of. It's just not as widespread as most people make it out to be, especially in Mount Pleasant and Summerville. Now, the biggest difference with this is those flood zones. Like I said, you're more prone, or it's easier to get into that AE or higher flood zone in Mount Pleasant, where you are required to have flood insurance with your mortgage. It doesn't mean that your house is going to flood every time it rains. And then Summerville, it's gonna be easier to find something in zone X with that lowest risk where you're not required to have flood insurance, but it's always a good thing to have just in case. Now flooding, water from the ground up, then we have hurricanes, water and wind from the sky. Now, most people say, I wanna move to Summerville because it's so much further inland and I'm afraid of hurricanes. Now, yes, when a storm does make landfall, it weakens pretty quick because it's not being fueled by the warm ocean waters and all of that fun stuff that I really don't understand. But imagine this, that storm on average, the average hurricane is 300 miles wide. Summerville is about 30 miles from Mount Pleasant. So you're really only looking at not much of that storm to get from Mount Pleasant to Summerville. Yes, it will weaken. You will have less wind up in the Summerville area than you will in Mount Pleasant. But if that's the sole purpose of moving from one to the other, like, yeah, you are gonna get less effects most often in Summerville than you are in Mount Pleasant. But when a storm is that big, if it is severe, it's gonna be severe in both areas. If you wanna learn more about these areas, check out these two videos that I've got right here, our spotlights for Summerville and Mount Pleasant. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to reach out, call me, email me, text me. I'm happy to help you and answer any questions that you may have and help you make that move. So give me a call, check out these videos, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.